the thing. Okay, so here we accepted three numbers, right? So for example, I say int of input, okay. Uh, then I say enter a, then b is equal to, I'll copy it. So I'm accepting three values now, a, b, and c. So I'll be finding biggest of three numbers as we did yesterday by taking age of a person. Now, as you know that we'll compare like this. If A is greater than B and A is greater than C, A is greater than B and A is greater than C, then what we will do is we'll print directly that A is greater. We'll print directly that A is greater. Okay, so that will be the output. Then we seen that we took an else part. Okay, we took the else part and we nest in the else part. We say that if a is greater than b, because else cannot take condition, so we have to write another if else, or I can say b is greater than c, then I printed b is greater or c is greater, else c is greater. That is what we did yesterday. So I'll just print b is greater and then go here and write an else part, and then we say c is greater. Okay, so this is my program actually. So this is what we did yesterday, finding the greatest of three numbers. I said if a is greater than b and a is greater than c, you print a is greater. Else, if b is greater than c, you print b is greater, else c is greater. So this is nesting in the else part. So if we go deeper and deeper, suppose in the else part again I keep nesting. Okay, in our other problems, if you see, especially when we take greater of sorry, where we have division, like first division, second division, third division, fail the problem, you need to keep nesting in the else part. Okay, and you can imagine that the indentation problem, and the problem will go up to here, and there is a lot of problem with the indentation, and nesting in the else part will create a problem for you. Let me show you how it looks like when I nest in the else part. So for example, I'm doing here, I'll just change the color of the pen. Okay, suppose you tested this way, if, okay, percentage is greater than or equal to 70, percentage is greater than or equal to 70, you print distinction. You print distinction. Okay, I'm just writing like this. You print distinction. Okay, else you will take if statement here. If percentage is greater than or equal to 60, okay, greater than or equal to 60, you print first division. You print first division. And then else for this, else for this. Again, you will write an if statement. Okay, if percentage is greater than or equal to 50. So can you imagine in else part I am nesting one more if again and again. So this is an else part here. This is my if statement. I wrote an else part for that, and inside that I nested it. Again in the else part, I'll do nesting. Again in the else part, I'll do nesting. So this will become very complicated. So this problem can be solved with nested if else. Okay, nested if else, that you required nested if else whenever we wanted to take else part in the sorry, nesting in the else part. Okay, if we wanted to take nesting in the else part, we will try to do this way. Okay, nesting in the else part, but this will become very complicated. Yeah, thank you, Udit. So this will become very complicated, that to write else, nesting in the else part every time. To the one level it's okay, guys. To the one level it's okay, it's readable, it's understandable. That's why we solve this problem with nesting of else part, because we also have to teach you how to nest in the else part, how to nest in the else part, because generally we think that nesting can only happen in if, not in else. That's true actually. No need for nesting in the else part, because we have a better way out of it, but still we need to learn that how to nest in the else part. Okay, but the problem is if we go deeper and deeper, the complexity of the program will increase. So that's why Python people has realized actually there should be no need of else if ladder, but because of the complexity, what Python says that this can be solved with else if. Okay, because you are taking nesting in the else part, you're taking nesting in the else part, so it can be solved with else if. So that is the only thing. So else if is actually a form of nested in the else part. That's why the confusion started, guys. That's why the confusion actually started. Okay, as you can see here now that I can write like this. No, it's not like that. It's there from the beginning. Okay, even in C and other programming languages, it's there from the beginning. The only thing is to make the thing simple. It's not like a difference from Python 2 to Python 3. Now you can see this is my else if actually. Same program I converted into else if. If this is true, do this way. Else if B is greater, so here instead of nesting, you're writing like this. You all got it, guys? Instead of nesting, I just write else if here now. So else if is a form of nesting in the else part actually. That's what the question from actually can I see Nagaraja? It's perfectly good question. That is it possible? If it is possible, nested if statement and else if ladder. Okay, I have little confused and nested. That is the confusion we generally have, guys. Okay, that's the confusion we will have. This one is not clear. Then nested if else. Yes, that's true. That's true, Kudal. This is little more clear and more readable. Yes, simply we are merging both of them and reducing the complexity. So that way you can see here, this also works exactly same. This also works exactly same. I say 2, 3 and 1 and you see B is greater is getting printed now. How it's getting printed? Let's trace it out now. Let's trace it out how it's getting printed. Okay, I'll just put it here. Okay, as you can see here now, I'm taking a value which is 2 is greater than 3, false, it will not check the second one. Okay, simply it goes here and check b is greater than c, 3 is greater than 1, yes, it will see b is greater. Okay, so any one else if get execute, the other things will not get executed. So there was a couple of questions. Let me answer. Okay, Shikawat says they simply merge both to reduce the complexity. 100% correct, Shikawat. Is for so most of the problem LCP is used. That's definitely Aditi. One level of nesting that else can be nested, but generally preferred is instead of nesting else, this is most preferable, Aditi. That's 100% correct. They will use else if rather than nesting in else part. Okay, nested else if called other languages in Python called else if statement. Yes, Satyam. Even in other languages, you have ladder of else statement where you are actually nesting only but removing the flower brackets. But in Python, they have special keyword called else if. To do such kind of program, you have else if as a special keyword. I hope this makes clear regarding difference between nesting and ladder because this can be asked, guys. So that's why it's a good question, an important question. Okay, so other problems can you solve? If not, I will make you like we will solve in next session or somewhere. No, Satyam. In Python, it is very clear that you can either you have to nest in else and then write if, okay, and you have to use a keyword called elif. So you can call else if or elif, but the keyword is elif. You can call, there is no problem while calling. Okay, so thank you, Satyam. So you can call else if or elif, but elif is a keyword. In general, you can call it as an else if statement, no problem. Yeah, no problem, Nagaraj. It's important, right? That's why I will mostly expecting at least at the beginning of the session, I'll be expecting some questions because it will be like a revision. Okay, and this is the best way because the doubt what you get is the same thing what expect in interviews and all. It's something like the discussing interview questions or something. It's I'm very actually wanted to have doubts. I think this is the best way of understanding the concept and all. Okay, and also I get satisfied. I'll be happy that okay, I'm able to make things clear, and people are clear with a few things, and also that we can discuss about it. Okay, thank you for the question. Actually, I should be thank you for questioning all of you. So Santosh says if condition should be end with else, either we use in nested if else or else if. Not exactly Santosh, because you can have a simple if also. But generally, whenever you nest and you have else if, then obviously it ends with else. 99.9% it will end with else, but it is not compulsory, because you know that you can have a simple if at the end. You have if else, if else, if else, if else, then you can have a simple if at the end. Okay, but generally in else if elif, it should be end with else. That's 99.9% will do that way. Then only it suits, right? Whenever you have n number of conditions, then it should be, but it can not necessary. That's what I mean to say. The should word is not needed. Like if condition should be end with else is not needed. It should not be end with else. It can have only else if again. Like in my previous problem, I can take, instead of this else, I can take one more elif. Not required, but I can take elif. To just answer your question, I can take elif, but elif takes condition. Not needed, right? Not needed, but this perfectly works again. This perfectly works again. You see, I entered 1, 2, and 3. It's printing C is greater. And you see here, there is no else statement at the end. Got it? So it should not end with else. That's not mandatory. Yes, like conditional operator else is mandatory, but in if statement else is not mandatory. That's true with it. Okay? So you don't need to have an end with an else part. But it's good, right? If none of the conditions satisfies, then else will satisfy. So here unnecessary I'm taking the condition. So it is actually not acceptable, because you are increasing little time complexity, because for every condition evaluation, the time will be increased. Time will be taken. So that way it's not recommended this way. So else will reduce the time, because you're saying that don't need to check the condition. If none of the conditions satisfy, simply you print C is greater. So this is preferable, Jan. Okay, so shall we conclude if statement now? Shall we conclude if statement? Okay, good. So let me check with everyone, because I'm going to start an important topic. So that's why for first half an hour, I decided that either I will solve the problems for arranging three numbers in ascending order. Is there any other way to do other than else if? Uh, Nesting is there, but not exactly, but you have to do with else if only, Aditi. Okay? What about to what would be the fastest way to compare? Let's say if we had 10 inputs to do. Yes, yes, that's true. Not exactly 10. You can nest actually, but it takes number of conditions increases. That's true, Aditi. Six cases we have to take. Udit, sorry, if you can explain us little bit, like input means exactly here. I didn't understood. 10 conditions or 10 input? Okay, I can say what Udit and Aditi is concerned about: 10 inputs and compare largest among those. Okay, so if you have that way, then we have some shortcuts, Udit. You don't have to go for that. We have arc concept in Python, and whenever the number increases, you can either go for list or a tuple, Udit. And we do have a built-in function called max, which can find you the maximum out of it. Yeah, okay, you have that way. You can use the list, and then you can find the max out of it. When more than three and all, you will always go for list or an array, guys. When you have more numbers, you'll go for an array and you go for a list, and then you write a logic for either finding the maximum, or you can use the max function. Okay, Good. But Aditi, what you are concerned about, like that's what my next homework question to all of you. The next homework question to all of you is, you need to find out the device. Okay. The next homework question is, I already told you that there is no switch statement. I already told you that there is no switch statement in Python. Okay, there is no switch statement in Python. So you need to find out like the reason why there is no switch statement in Python. Any guess? Any guesses? Like why there is no switch statement in Python? It can be at homework, but at least you can guess one reason. The other reasons you can find out, or we'll discuss the other reason. Uh, what is switch statement? Like other programming languages, Udit, it's very important or very interesting construct. Like Aditi was asking, if we have number of condition increases, okay, then basically there will be a problem in yeah cases when you have lot of problem, like you have number of condition increases, the complexity of the program will be very high. Okay, and especially with opening and closing brackets you face a lot of problem. So that's why the C people and the other languages, they have the construct called switch statement, where they write switch followed by the expression, and you have cases like case one, and then like the problem. I would like to ask you, like the problem what you have solved, because like distinction, first division, second division, third division. Can you solve that problem in C or Java using switch statement? If you know that language, you can try that way. That will be interesting actually. Yeah, it's like else if only, but switch statement has a different construct. Very good, Aditi. That's one of the reason. One of the reason, because of the indentation problem, they could not find a suitable syntax for the switch statement. That is, and the biggest reason that why we don't have a switch statement in Python. So Aditi has a perfect guess. So let me put for everyone. Okay. So this is what Aditi thinks, that could not find the syntax, means they don't find, even they proposed the syntax, okay, in PEP some version, but it was rejected because the syntax was not suitable. Okay, so that is one of the reason why we don't have a switch statement in Python. Okay, that's what we don't have a switch statement in Python. Another reason is, you see that the basic reason why people has use else switch statement in other languages, because the reason is opening bracket and closing bracket and readability. As already else if statement is so readable, okay, and it is so readable, so that's why it does not need it actually. It does not need it. But actually switch takes very less time compared to else if in other programming language. So that's we are missing. That's why people try to have a switch statement, but they cannot, because the syntax does not suit, especially with the indentation concept, things will not be suitable. Yes. That's true, Aditi. Again, okay, that's very perfect. So there was other questions like, maybe switch has changed to other things in Python. No, not exactly. They need switch because one a couple of things has been solved with else if only. Else if is more preferable than switch in Python. But they propose switch statement, but Aditi was 100% correct. They did not find the suitable syntax, especially with indentation. The switch they have in other languages, they proposed the model, but it was not perfect. Okay, it was like more complex than it should be. So they have rejected that syntax, and that's why they don't have this switch statement. Same with do while again. Same with do while. So that's why I told you at the beginning itself that we don't have a switch statement and we don't have else if statement, do while statement, right? I told you here that flow control, when I started, I told you conditional statement is only one if statement, and further if statement has been divided in other part. But iterative statement, there are while statement and for statement, we don't have do while statement. The main reason is they don't find suitable syntax for that, especially indentation syntax, they don't find it. And Shikawat has a question. the root of given coefficients are yes, that's perfectly fine. You can use 0 or 1 there, or you can skip them. These are the indexes. Default is 0 and 1. If you would like to change, then you use it. Otherwise, no need for that indexes, Shikawat. Okay, no need for that indexes. You can skip that. Okay, so with all these things, uh, actually, the question was, let me put for everyone. The question from Shikawat is this one. Okay, here 0 and 1 is index, Aditi. Actually, I was answering Shikawat's doubt, so that's why the index concepts comes in picture here now. Okay, anyhow, you go through with that. We have already tried to answer that why there is no switch statement, but please go through with that. You will get some clarity like why they don't have switch statement and all. Okay, and let's see tomorrow we will have a brief discussion about it. Along with do while, we'll do this discussion that why we don't have switch and do while in Python. Okay with that, guys? I will definitely do that, Shikawat. Can we do that at the end of the session? Okay, okay, thank you. Like in switch, we have problem like case 1, case 2. We have to use else if to solve this. Of course, SK. We have to use else if in Python to solve it because we don't have a switch statement with for that. Okay, fine. So, perfect question again. So, I'm getting very interesting questions today, and I think the topics demand, and the next topics will be demanding more questions like that, so that it will be helpful for all of us actually. Okay, so let's go here and talk about the next statement, which is iterative statement. Okay, let's talk about the next statement called iterative statements now. Iterative, okay, or it also called as repetitive, or also called as looping statements. There are many names, okay. They are called it as iterative statements, looping statements, or repetitive statements. Okay, these are the names given to this things now: iterative statement, repetitive statement, and looping statement. So basically, some of the problems are iterative in nature, or repetitive in nature, or looping nature. Okay, like some problem, like most of the mathematical problems are iterative in nature. Meaning, if you wanted to find sum of some expression, or you wanted to print something for a number of times, okay, then obviously instead of using that print statement for number of times, the easiest way in programming languages will be iterative or looping state. They're very powerful. Actually, they are very powerful statements, and we use them a lot in our future programming. And mostly, half 50% of your first assignment depends on iterative or looping state. Meaning, at least 20 questions or 25 questions will be on iterative or looping statements. Okay, so once we cover this iterative statement and looping statement, you can complete all 50 problems. And that's what our expectation as well, that once we complete this particular statement, by that you will be completing that 50 problems. And when we start the next topic called data type, you will be starting the set 2, because for set 2, you will have data types there. Okay, for set 2 you have data types. Okay, so let's start discussing about iterative statement, repetitive statement, or looping statement actually. Now I'll go with the problem so that you can understand. Okay, I'll go here for, okay. Oh, I don't think I need to start another one. Okay, let's try to solve this problem. Let's try to solve this problem. Suppose I have a problem like this. Okay, write a program to print 1 to n natural numbers without new line. Is asking us, we have to print 1 to n natural numbers without using new line. So can you solve this problem without loop? Can you solve this problem without loop? That is my first question. Then we will understand what is loops. Like I wanted to enter some range, then you have to print this till that range now. Is there any way that you can print these values till that range without loops? So Aditi confirms that no. Satyam says no, we have to use loop. Yes, Santosh. Okay, Nitin, everyone says that no, we need to use loop here. Okay, without loop, it is not possible. The only way is without loop, it's possible only by using recursion concept. We'll talk about what is recursion and all. That is an alternative for loop actually. But actually, if they ask this question in interview, the answer will be yes. Okay. Snehal says in Hindi. That's good to see. In Hindi. Okay. It should be something different. Okay. Yeah. So good to see Snehal. That sometimes charge the things and all. Okay. Uh, Very good. So that seems that you're active, and that's what also a good thing for our sessions and all. Few things like good for our sessions. What exactly new line means? If I print in next line actually, Shikawat, it means in next line. Shall we solve this problem in Python now? That printing the value till that range. Okay, so let's start solving this problem so that we can understand. Okay, so I'll be expecting the same with you, or at least we need help from you now. So I'll go here, I will remove everything. No need for loop, guys. No for loop. Says use while loop. Okay, let us introduce while loop first, then we will talk about for loop. Okay, then we will talk about for loop. So at least not today. Today we'll only talk about the while loop, because we know that there are two iterative statements in Python. There are two iterative statements in Python. Again, the question will be difference between while and for. So and that, thank you for Aditi, Saif and Ubul, that you maintain the privacy, like the suspense, so that we will start discussing a while loop, then we will go for a for loop. Okay, so let's start discussing about the while loop now. What exactly the while loop is and how to write it. While loop. So first I would like to start with while loop or while statement. Anything you can call it. Okay, while statement or while loop. So first thing I would like to talk about the syntax of the while loop. First thing I would like to talk about the syntax of the while loop. The syntax of the while loop is you will write a while keyword, you will write the while keyword, and obviously you will not use any brackets. You will simply write the condition. You simply write the condition, and after the condition you will put the colon. You will put the colon and all the indentation code, and you will write the statements. All the indentation code, and you will write the statements here. Okay, you will write the statements here. So this is the loop. While loop means until a condition is met, the loop will keep on going forever. Yes, that's true with it. Okay, so basically what happens now, we will the flow of this program will be, the flow of this program is it checks the condition. If the condition is true, the condition is true, it will go inside, and the statements will be executed. The statements will be executed, and once the condition is false, it directly comes out. It directly comes out when the condition is false and executes the remaining statement. Executes the remaining statements. If we have, then the remaining statements will be executed when the condition is false. Otherwise, okay, after executing the statement, it directly does not comes out. After executing the statement, it will go back and check the condition. So this is called looping actually. This is called looping. If you would like to check the flow of the program, if you would like to check the flow of the program, the flow of the program looks something like this. The flow of the program looks something like this. We'll have a condition. Okay, we'll have a condition here. For example, I take some condition here now. Okay, some condition. It can be true. Okay, if it is true, the statements will be executed. The statements will be executed. And remember, after statements get executed, it will not stop. It will go back and check the condition again. That's called looping. It will go back and check the condition again. That's called looping actually. Okay, so after checking the condition, the statements get executed, and again it will go back and check the condition until it becomes false. If it becomes false, then the remaining statements will be executed. Then the remaining statements will be executed. So this will be the flow of this particular thing, while loop. While condition, Okay, it will go and check the condition. If it is true, it will execute the statement, and after executing the statement, it's important that it will go back and check the condition. That's what called loop or repeat or iterate. Okay, like if statement, they don't iterate, they don't go back and check the condition and again. In if statement, it checks the condition only once, but in while loop, it checks the condition again and again. It checks the condition again and again. Let us try to solve the problem. Let us try to solve our problem now. The problem is I have to print the value till the range. I have to print the value till the range. So I will accept that range value from user. I'll accept that nth value from the user now. It will convert into int, and I'll say input here. I'll say input, and here I will say enter range. Enter range, so that I will print till that range now. I will print till that range. Can you tell me what can be my next statement? What will be my next statement in this program? I hope the program is very clear. I just wanted to accept the range, and then I have to print the natural numbers till that range. I need to print the natural numbers till that range. Very good. SK says that we can use while loop here. Okay, and the next statement can be a while. But actually, guys, to understand this while loop, we have to understand the condition actually. Okay, to understand the loop perfectly, we have to talk about condition little bit. We have to talk about condition here little bit. So let's talk about what is this condition is all about. Okay, let's talk about what is the condition is all about. So basically, for condition, you require three things. For taking condition, you require three things. What are the three things I would like to talk about? The first thing is when you take condition in while loop, because the way you take the condition in loop and the way you take the condition in other programming languages will be little different. Okay, the way you take the condition is the first part in condition is actually you need to take some loop variable. First thing, you require a loop variable. What is a loop variable? The loop variable will help you to decide the loop. The loop variable is very, very important. So whenever you use while loop or for loop, okay, in any programming language, your first decision will be loop variable. The first decision will be your loop variable. So I would like to answer to Ubul and others that you cannot take n directly, guys. You cannot take n directly and increment the n because it will create a problem. N is fixed. So that's why don't play with n. You better take the loop variable. Okay, better take the loop variable. Loop variable can be name anything. Loop variable can be name anything. But most of the people prefer to use the loop variable as something like I, j, or k. Okay, loop variable generally prefer to have I, j, or k to differentiate from other variables. And what you need to do with the loop variable is you have to initialize to the initial value, either with 0 or 1 or something. So perfectly correct, sir. It is called it as initialization. It's called it as initialization. So Vamshi, Saif, SK, everybody is correct now that loop variable need to be initialized. So the first thing is you need to take the loop variable and initialize the loop variable. Initialize with value. You have to take a loop variable and initialize with the value. The same thing I will do in my program now, that I'll take the loop variable I and I will initialize it to 1 because I have to start counting from 1. I have to start counting from 1 now. So that is our first thing, that you have to take a loop variable. Second thing here is the condition. Test. Okay, test condition. Test condition. How you test the condition? You need to check that whether that loop variable is until that range. So you have to check the loop variable. Okay, you have to compare the loop variable until range. Until range. So check loop variable until range, meaning I will check that whether my loop variable, now the while loop starts and the condition will be written. I'll check while my loop variable is still below that range or not. I'll check that the loop variable is still below that range or not, and I will print that I value. I'll print that I value here now. I'll print that I value. Okay, and then the next important thing is update the I value. Okay, update loop variable. So you need to update the loop variable. So it's important that you should update the loop variable. If you forget to update the loop variable, it becomes an infinite loop because I will remains 1 only. So you should not keep that I1, because especially in loops, you need to be very careful with the condition. Any mistake in the condition will make it infinite loop, and you never comes out of the loop, guys. And you never comes out of the loop if your condition is wrong. So that's why from here the tracing becomes mandatory, because we need to trace and check before executing whether the loop is finite or infinite. Okay, whether it's end up with some after some condition, or it becomes an infinite loop. It's mandatory that your loop should terminate. If your loop does not terminate, it keeps going, then it becomes an infinite loop, then it becomes an infinite loop. So that's not recommended. So that's why updating is very important. And obviously you know that we don't have plus plus operator, so please never use that. We don't have increment operator in Python, so that's why either you can use I plus is equal to 1, this is a shortcut way to use it, or I is equal to I plus 1. Never uses I plus plus, as we are very familiar or very used to in other languages. Don't use that because it's not available, because we already discussed the operators and we don't find plus plus operator there, right? And there is a reason again for that, so we'll talk. So this is the program for our requirement, but it will not fulfill our requirement because the output is not as we expected. Suppose I enter the range as 5, so it displays me the number one after the other. What if I enter 100? So it's taking 100 lines. So that's not recommended. So that's why it's printed that print in same line. That's what the question demands, says that you without new line, don't print in new line. That's what means Shikawat. Shikawat, can you help us like how to do that? What is the only change I have to do here so that it will print me in same line? Anybody? Very good, very good. I have to use end here. We did this before, and I can say that end is equal to a space. End is equal to space. Very good, Snehal. Okay, Vamshi, sorry, Kudal, Aditi, Snehal. That's perfect. I can use end is equal to space. That's true, Nitin, Ubul. So when I do this, now you can see here, when I run this code now, okay, I'll close this. Okay, I'll run again. So when I run this now, you can see here I give 17 as in our sample input output, and it's printing perfectly fine as expected. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and then 17. Perfect. Any question? So we took input from user, which is the range, and I initialize the variable. So I becomes 1. 1 less than or equal to, suppose it is 5, then 1 less than or equal to 5, true. It prints 1, and then it will not go to next line. It will print space after that. Actually, by default, it will go to next line. But as I have wrote end is equal to space, it will not go to next line. It will add a space after that. And after that, it will update the I value. It becomes 2. It checks 2 is less than 5. Yes, it prints 2 and goes and prints space. Okay, and then I plus is equal to 1. It becomes 3. 3 less than 5 prints 3. 4. 4 less than 5 prints 4. 5. 5 less than 5 prints 5. And then when it becomes 6, 6 less than 5, the condition is false and it comes out. So it will only comes out if the condition is false. Yeah, there is nothing like I plus plus and I minus minus in Python, because the reason is, as Python is a dynamically type, and again it does not suit, because I plus plus means it should be first declare and then it has to be updated. So I plus plus makes no sense then. So as it is dynamically typed language, so I plus plus and I minus minus does not suit for Python. So that's why they don't have this operator. It has an advantage. Sometimes it has to sacrifice the advantage for other reasons, guys. Like switch statement has advantage. Plus plus and minus minus also has an advantage comparatively to I plus is equal to 1. They work same, but they are advantageous more. That's why other languages use them very frequently in loop statements and all. Okay, and whenever they require updating. Yeah, for loop without it is a kind of awkward. Okay, that's why we have a different construct of for loop, Aditi. So that's true. Any other question, guys, regarding this problem? Any other question? Anybody want me to trace or explain this program, or everybody understood so that I can go for next program? Okay, thank you. Satyam says no question. It's clear. Okay, Nitesh, yeah, everything, everybody says perfectly fine. So I hope you all got it. What is mean by initialization, condition, and updation. So that you need to clear. Okay, next question is quite similar. Next question is quite similar. Let's see who, reduce the line, is it possible? Actually, not needed, but still it can be possible, but not needed. Okay, like all of them are required. Initialization has to be done before while loop. The while loop is required, printing is required, and updating is required. Okay, with for loop we can reduce lines little bit. Instead of this many lines in a for loop, I can write in 2 lines. That's why for loop is more recommended. But that's what our main thing for tomorrow's session. Difference between while and for. Okay, see, we have different constructs, like we already learned in if. We have simple if, we have nesting, we have ladder, we have if else. So all are there, but the important thing is when to use what is important thing actually. Okay, so it's not like we have all of them and you can use whenever we want. It's not like that. It has to be used when it is required. So that's why it's important to decide that when to use while and when to use for. So that will be discussion after discussing the for loop. So different place uses specific thing, required things. That's true, Satyam. So here it's difficult to reduce the number of lines because every statement is required and it should be in a different line. So that's why we cannot reduce. But using for loop, I can do it. But I don't want to introduce the for loop now. Or I think it's better if we introduce the for loop, but we have less time. It's okay. We will introduce tomorrow so that we can go full fledged about for loop. But let us solve this problem with. Yeah, that's true. That's true. That's perfectly fine. But we need to discuss a few things, Udit, regarding that. Then only we'll go for loop. You know why we don't have a regular for loop? I is equal to 0, I less than 10, I plus plus. Udit, why do you think that you don't have a regular for loop? Because in other languages, you have used a for loop a lot. Okay, and the syntax of the for loop is like I is equal to 0, semicolon, I less than 10 or whatever the range, then I plus plus. You use this for loop. Any guess, Udit? That's true, Satyam. Okay, any guess? I'm saying. Any guess, Udit? Because this is another homework actually for tomorrow. Switch, you can delay little bit, but at least an homework like why we have, yeah, that's true, Bull. We all have the same doubt that why we don't have a regular for loop. Why the for loop is something different in Python. Any guess, Aditi, Udit? I can take the name I can see on the chat generally so that others also chat so that we'll know like everybody is following. Satyam is putting some good words here. So can you help us, Satyam? Like why we don't have regular for loop in Python? But still I can write Abhishek I is equal to I plus 1. I can write it, right? It's not only for increment reason. It will be a silly reason then that because of increment we don't have a for loop. I can write I is equal to I plus 1. Python might have a for loop like this, right? We can write a for loop with, if there is no increment, then I can update. Like for I is equal to 1, okay? I less than or equal to n in our previous case, I is equal to I plus 1. I can write like this. New line also not problem. New line is all in print statement. I can say print end is equal to a space. End is equal to space. This is not available in Python. Okay, as we use very frequently in other languages, but unfortunately this is not possible in Python. Okay, so Krishna has come up with his reason for reading data from different data types like list, tuple and all. Can be reason, guys. So Krishna is almost close. Okay, Krishna is almost close. Who said Santosh semicolon is not supported? It's supported in Python. It's a perfect support. I'll tell you. I'll tell you. It does not use it n, but it can be used in between to separate. Like comma is used like a separator. Santosh, you should know that semicolon is allowed in Python. You know, semicolon is allowed in Python. Aditi, sorry, I didn't get you. Because of for loop in Python works like for each in Java. That's why we don't have a quite okay, but I want more clarification, Aditi. Aditi and Krishna is like almost close to the answer, but we want little more clarification. Like why we don't have such kind of for loop. Okay, I hope Abhishek you got the point now. You got the point. Like I can write a for loop like this. It's more readable. And Santosh, let me tell you that we have a semicolon in Python. I can write like this, guys. Print hello, print hello, semicolon, print. Okay, hi, semicolon, and print. Okay, bye. It's perfectly fine, guys. I can have semicolons. You see, Python did not given me an error. So it can be used to separate the things in between. It's perfectly fine to write the semicolon in Python. At least not at the end, but it can be used as a separator, guys. Yeah, Roshan, I was like asking that why don't we have this regular for loop in Python? See, we covered while loop now, and we wanted to introduce for loop, but was the question. Yeah, that's Santosh. But you got it. It's a good question. Your guests help us to the people. Like many of us thought that there is no semicolon concept in Python, but there is a semicolon concept in Python. Thank you for your answer. Sorry, question. Because Python is a dynamically typed language. No, Kudal, there is no reason for dynamically type for the for loop. Iteration from built-in data type like list easy to use with for loop. Yes, Krishna. That's what. You're a little closer and closer. Okay. So I'll go with Krishna's word and Aditi's thing that basically, guys, one thing I wanted to tell you that I will talk about it so that you can do some homework on that and so that we can start a for loop tomorrow. So for a couple of reasons why we don't have a for loop. The first reason why we don't have this kind of for loop is you know that this kind of for loop in other programming languages work for primitive types, work for primitive type. But we don't have primitive type in Python. Everything is an object in Python. Everything is an object in Python. So for object related thing, so Aditi was somewhere correct because I hope the people who are from Java background, they know that for object to iterate, to work with object, Java has introduced something called for each loop. Have you heard about for each loop in Java? Java have two loops. Java has two loops actually. Java has two loops. One is for primitive, they have regular for loop, they have regular for loop. Okay, regular for loop for primitive. Okay, I'm talking about Java. I'm talking about Java. In Java there are two for loops. Okay, regular for loop for primitive and for each loop for objects. For each loop for object. If you talk about Python, then they don't have primitive type, they have only object type. Everything is an object in Python. Everything is an object in Python. That's why Python has decided I will have something like for each construct. Python has decided that I will not have a regular for loop because there is no primitive. Because for each loop is very advantageous in Java for object related thing. So Python decided that as I have everything as an object, why will I have a regular for loop unnecessary? If it is so suitable for object like a for each loop, so that's why Java for loop is similar to for each loop actually. So Java actually has for each loop. They don't have regular for loop. Understood everyone? Why we don't have a regular for loop in Java? Because we don't have primitive type. Like what is primitive means, Santosh? In other languages like integer, float, double, they are primitive data types. They are primitive data types. Okay, that's why you require declaration and everything. Not exactly because if primitive it's required declaration. At least they are not objects. At least they are not object. But you've seen that even integer is object in Python. You remember when I declare x is equal to 10, I talked about in memory management if you remember. I told you if I ask you what is x here, what will be your answer? What is x here? Anybody? X, X. What is X here? Okay, that's good. X is a reference, right? X is a reference. We don't call it as a variable, right? There is no variable concept. And what is 10? What is 10? Very good. 10 is an integer object. 10 is an integer object. That's why when I asked, please tell me the type of X, it told you it belongs to a class called integer. So in Python, int, float, all these are classes, not primitive type. Not primitive type. So everything in Python is an object, first of all. That's why Java do not claim itself as a pure or 100% object-oriented programming language, because it do support for primitives. It do support for primitives. So there is no primitive concepts. So like integer, float, character, string, whatever you learn in other languages, you learn as primitive, but at least they are not same in Java because they are objects. This is one of the biggest reason why we don't have a regular for loop. Understood? Your answer should be like this. Why we don't have a regular for loop? Java don't have primitives. That is enough. They will understand. So there is no required of regular for loop. We have a special for loop in Python. Yes, that's true, Aditi. The Python for loop executes one for each member. That's why it's called for each. Okay, yeah, that's 100% good, Aditi. You should talk to everyone, but I can, like, you can maintain privacy, no problem. Okay, but still some good words I would like to put for everyone. This is what Aditi says, that Python for each for loop execute one for each member, because object contains members. Okay, so that's what for loop says, that for each member you go and iterate. So that looks more precise than your regular for loop. Then for your regular for loop. Understood, everyone? Yes, that's what we will discuss, Rajshekhar. We can use for any object, actually, any object, string. Okay, so we'll write the syntax of regular for loop and we will discuss. Okay, at least I will write the syntax for the regular for loop now. Let me introduce for loop and let's at least write the syntax so that we will discuss tomorrow about the for loop. Okay, the syntax of for loop. So let me talk about for loop now. Okay, so here we go for loop. So we already learned that why we don't have for loop, and also I need to put this thing before the topic. What we started was for loop. Okay, we discussed why we don't have such kind of for loop in Python, because it does not support primitive type and all. Let me talk about the syntax of the for loop now. Let me talk about the syntax of the for loop. For loop has the syntax. We use a keyword called for, then obviously a variable. Okay, it will have a variable here now, obviously a variable. Okay, and then we will use in operator. We will use in operator. Okay, and on the right hand side we will use something like collection or sequence, any collection or sequence. So this for loop does not work for all, it will work for only collection or sequence. Then followed by your colon, then followed by your colon, obviously, and you will write the statements inside this with proper indentation. You'll write statements inside this with proper indentation. So you will have statements inside the loop. So what it will do now, the way it works here, is pick up the item for the collection. That's what Aditi was talking about. Like Python for loop, execute one for each member. This is called member from the collection or sequence. It picks each member and then executes the statement. This is how you write a for loop in Python, not in a regular way. Okay, you will get more clarity when we start discussing about it. Then you will understand that why we don't have a regular for loop. Okay, this is all for today. I hope the syntax is very clear. Please copy the syntax and we will discuss tomorrow. Try not to use, because especially for such kind of problem to be solved in for loop, you require some more knowledge. So I will discuss that in detail tomorrow and then we'll talk about the for loop. Got my point, everyone? Okay. Thank you, Aditi. Thank you, Satyam. Thank you, Dev. Thank you, Vamshi. So I hope the loops concept is clear. We started iterative, repetitive, and loop statement. While loop we discussed, now we about to discuss for loop. But at least we had a brief discussion that why we don't have a regular for loop in Python. As we discussed, C only have a regular for loop. Java has a regular for loop and for each loop. So Java maintained regular for loop for primitives and for each loop for objects and collections. Okay, in Java. But as Python don't have primitive, it has objects. So it has decided that let's have only for each loop. We don't require regular for loop because it makes no sense. We already have a while loop. Why do have a regular for loop then? So also this is one reason. Another reason is Python 3 people has decided that there will be no two construct for a single thing. There will be no two construct for the single thing because it creates problem rather than solving the problem. So that's why they will have only one loop now. Yes, so there is only two loops are there. There is no do while loop with it. Yes, actually, but I think it's okay. You can try from our assignments SK, but I supposed to give, then I realized that let's solve the same problem with for loop. Let's solve all the problems together with while as well as for. Then we can understand the differences. So that's why I stopped the next lab actually. So let us solve this lab, first lab with for loop. Okay, then because it needs require a little more in detail, so we'll discuss that tomorrow and then we'll solve the problem, and from here we will go with next exercises, then we will decide whether to solve in while loop or whether to solve in for loop. That way we can decide. Yeah, that's true also, Raj Shekhar, that is correct. Debugging can also help. Good, so only copy the syntax, no worry about the for loop now. Forget about everything about for loop syntax. We'll anyhow discuss tomorrow. At least do remember that why we don't have regular for loop. If possible, do some research and come up with some solution and well. It is wrong, Ubul, because in Python, print statement returns none. It returns none. Okay, Ubul. So if none, that's why the output is always out. No, it's not difficult, Satyam. It's very easy actually. In C Java, I can say it is little difficult, but it's always easy. That's what our we'll keep solving the problem, then we understand, and we will conclude when to use while and when to use for. We will conclude at the end of looping concept. Okay, so we will do that. No, we haven't done actually, Udit. We'll do it in files concept actually supposed to be do, but it's okay because the situation was like it was like people will get confused because it was beginning, right? And I thought that people will unnecessarily get confused if I introduce. I used to do that at the same time, but that time the situation was like that. People still was in print statement. They're trying to understand what is n, what is separator. So that's why we haven't discussed about it. That's true, Aditi. That's what we will talk about as well. Okay. Uh, Obviously, that's the reason why we have a do while. That's why I told you that sometimes the statements and all, the indentation does not accept to have a do while. So that's why, unfortunately, we don't have a do while. So we can still use while in that case, Aditi, because even in other languages, same purpose, we can use while for that reason. But as you said in switch statement, it's 100% applicable to do while as well. So that's why they don't have do while. So we face such kind of problem, but we have an alternative for that. Yeah, thank you, Satyam. Okay, thank you. So let's go in the flow and we will discuss about that. Okay, so we haven't discussed Udit, that's true. We haven't discussed. We will discuss about two more arguments about the print statement. They're easy. Sometime if I get time I will talk about it, or when we go for files I will discuss. But anyhow, this is all for today. Okay, so we'll take a leave now. We'll see you tomorrow. Thank you, Nagaraju. Have a nice day. Thank you, Satyam. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Bull. Thank you, Rajshekar. Yeah, thank you, Aditi. Have a great day. Thank you, Nitin.